Howdy, howdy. Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup, Monday, January the 29th, the year 2024, in the United Corporations of America. Apologies for being late. Trying to juggle too many things as usual, but good things happening, which I'll be able to talk more about in a little bit. A lot going on, so little time these days because I'm finishing my book, We the Poisoned, exposing the Flint water cover up and the poisoning of 100,000 Americans, which I am excited to say will be out later this year. Got some other things in the works related to Flint, so stay tuned for that. But because I'm juggling that and trying to put the finishing touches on 26 chapters, have not had as much time to prepare for these streams as I normally do. So I figured, you know what, let's just talk to the people and do another phone, taking your calls. So we'll do that today. Also have exciting news, not for the people of East Palestine because their suffering is still going on, but at least for you, we will be going back to East Palestine. Lewis will be back there Wednesday for a few days. So I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. So we are continuing to stay on that disaster, unsurprisingly, after the mainstream media, with few exceptions. News Nation, which is, I guess, a mainstream media outlet, it doesn't have the reach that CNN or MSNBC have, but it is on cable, some providers. They've been covering it, but other than that, it's been us and Lewis. So Lewis will be back there for the 1 year anniversary, which is Saturday, I believe, is the 1 year anniversary of Norfolk Southern nuking East Palestine, Ohio. This is Lewis's 5th reporting trip that you, Status Coup viewers, particularly paying members, have helped us do. He's been there. This is going to be his 5th trip in 1 year. And we could not do it without your support and helping fund us to go on the ground. I'm not going to lie, slim pickings right now is financially. We've been on the ground, but we're kind of Jekyll and Hyde a bit. You know, I don't know if that's the right analogy. We grow the most when we're on the ground. When we're not on the ground, we don't grow as much in terms of paid members. So I'm hoping if you're not a paid member yet, you'll consider signing up today. Colin, what's the webpage address for the donation campaign? Oh, statuscoup.com/trip funding, statuscoup.com/trip funding. So if you go there, we have a custom page for this East Palestine trip where you can donate any amount to help us fund this reporting trip. As usual, as always, we do not have any of the big banks, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley, the military industrial complex funding us. Our funding comes from you, the people, and it's very expensive to fund these reporting trips. So I'm hoping if you're not a member, please sign up, statuscoup.com/join. And if you are a member, if you can, chip in a couple bucks for this trip. We appreciate all amounts, the large ones and the small ones. Obviously, we got to pay Lewis for his time and work. John will be with Lewis, flights, hotels, rent a car, etc. But I'm really looking forward to this because, like Flint, it should not be normalized that an American city, a little different than Flint, but an American city was poisoned by a corporation which unnecessarily detonated train cars carrying volatile cancerous chemicals over a small town in Ohio. It traveled west to other parts of Ohio, east to Pennsylvania, north. There's a lot of people still sick, and the federal government hasn't done shit for them. Frankly, Ohio ain't doing shit for them. And sadly, it's going to become another cancer cluster in a few years. So Lewis is going to be back there talking to residents, giving you updates. So really looking forward to that. I'm going to show you one or two clips before we start getting to calls. Colin will put up the number so you could call in. There's a lot going on. Obviously, we could take calls on whatever you want. Obviously, the UAW endorsed Biden. There's news with UAW. They already have 10,000 signatures from workers at Mercedes, Toyota, Hyundai, expressing interest in unionizing with UAW. Some people are not happy with UAW because they endorse Biden. We'll talk about that. Obviously, there was 3 Americans killed in Jordan by, what Republicans and Biden are suggesting was Iran. And now the anti-war Republicans. Wasn't it interesting that all these leftist channels were trying to push last year that, the Republican Party is more anti-war than the left. Excuse me, more anti-war than the Democrats. I was like, no, they're all pro-war. Republicans pretending to be anti-war are just against Ukraine because it's Biden's war. But they still want war with Iran and China and name your country. So predictably now, Lindsey Graham and the rest of the Republican hawks are calling for bomb Iran, even though we don't definitively know who was behind the drone attack that killed 3 Americans in Jordan. But anyway, open mic. We'll take your calls on whatever you want. But first, I want to get to, I didn't get to address this last week, but the UAW endorsed Biden last week. So let's play, I think we have 2 clips for that, right? One, the endorsement, and then one, Shawn Fain shitting on Donald Trump.
The United Auto Workers Union represents about 400,000 members and last week officially endorsed President Biden's re-election. For more, we're joined by its president, Shawn Fain. Welcome back to the program. What does the president need to do to win Michigan and not lose it like in 2016?
I think he has to keep doing what he's been doing all along. I mean, look, we've said this from the outset of my presidency that our endorsements are going to be earned. And we were clear about that. And when you look at these 2 candidates, it's very clear the difference between both of them. One of them, President Biden, has always bet on the American worker and stood with the American worker, and he proved that during this presidency. He stood up with us. For the first time in U.S. history, we had a sitting president join striking workers on a picket line. He saved a community. He worked with us. Belvidere, Illinois, that plant was closed. The community was written off for dead. President Biden came into the table with us and worked with us to save that community and bring back not just Belvidere, but a second plant.
Yeah. Mr. Fain, I'm going to take a quick break because I want to talk to you more without interruption about what's happening in your industry and what's happening in the Midwest. We have more questions in a moment. Stay with us. And we return to our conversation with the president of the UAW, Shawn Fain. Sir, back in 2016, your former UAW president said an estimated 28% of members voted for Donald Trump. Do you expect a similar breakdown this election?
I think it'll be less. I truly believe we're going to do the same thing we did during our contract campaign, during our strike. When we said endorsements will be earned, we meant it. And we're going to deal with facts and truth. And I believe the overwhelming majority of UAW members and working class people, when the facts and the truth are put in front of them, will support Joe Biden for president. That's why we made this decision. Look, when you look at these 2 candidates, Joe Biden has a history of serving others and serving the working class and fighting for the working class, standing with the working class. Donald Trump has a history of serving himself and standing for the billionaire class, and that's contrary to everything that working class people stand for. When you look at the issues during our contract campaign, retirement security, better wages, health care, wanting our time back, wanting our lives back, that's what matters. That's why 75% of the American public stood with the UAW in our fight, and I believe that's why a huge majority of our members and working class people will side with President Joe Biden in the upcoming election.
So that was UAW President Shawn Fain. I'm going to play one more clip and then I'll give you my takes and then we'll get to calls. Please smash the like button, share this live stream so we can get it out to more people. More people that press the like button, the more people that will see this very live stream. This was at the UAW conference in DC last week. They do an annual conference where he gave his thoughts on Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a scab. Donald Trump is a billionaire, and that's who he represents. If Donald Trump ever worked in an auto plant, he wouldn't be a UAW member. He'd be a company man trying to squeeze the American worker. Donald Trump stands against everything we stand for as a union, as a society. When you go back to our core issues, wages, retirement, health care, and our time, that's what this election's about. This election's about who will stand up with us and who will stand in our way. Those are the questions that will win or lose this election and will decide our fate. Those are the questions that will determine the future of our country and the fate of the working class.
So obviously he's made clear, and he was consistent about this during the UAW strike, that we covered on the ground for the first 25 days. We were the only independent outlet on the ground, and it ain't easy. Ain't easy to fund over 3 weeks on the ground. We were in Ohio, Michigan, Illinois. We even went to Canada at one point. So we covered it like a blanket. And I could tell you, I understand why it's easy in this current moment where it's just vile. Anybody supporting Joe Biden, it's hard to stomach because Biden is providing a blank check for Israel to slaughter and commit genocide in Israel. And in fairness, the UAW has come out calling for a ceasefire. They're, as far as I know, one of the biggest unions in America to do so. So they're not supporting Joe Biden's actions in Israel. So I get why a lot of people who were rah UAW for the strike and other things right now are, because you're understandably focused on the race to the bottom that is the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. A lot of people right now feel a little sour on Shawn Fain and the UAW. I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but I'll tell you what I think. You know, I think that Shawn Fain, who I'm a fan of, always an outstanding request for an interview. I think he laid it on a little thick in terms of Biden. I think, saying Biden's always been on the side of the working class, I think he knows that's not true. I don't really think if he chose to endorse Biden or the UAW chose to endorse Biden, I don't really think they have to go to those lengths in describing Biden because it's clearly not the case. With that said, I can't really say that I have a problem with the UAW endorsing Biden, and I'll tell you why. Biden, I don't particularly care about the photo op of Biden going to stand with the workers on the picket line. I know people made that a big deal because it was the first president to go on a picket line. Great. I mean, I guess give him credit for doing that. It's not a huge bar. Most presidents have been corporate hacks or corporate friendly hacks, but at least Biden did that. The biggest thing from my reporting and being on the ground there, the biggest thing Biden did was, frankly, stay out of the way. In the past, presidents, both Democrat and Republican, have been very heavy-handed during strikes, impasses like this, particularly around a presidential year, to try and twist the arm of a union like the UAW. Not the corporations, the union to buckle. In the UAW strike last year, Biden did not do that. To his credit, he did not try to pressure the UAW to fold, to take a shitty deal. He did not, he sent two of his advisors. The UAW basically said, turn around, we don't want you here. And Biden, for the most part, stayed out of it. And that, to me, that is what I was told, not just by Shawn Fain and UAW leadership, but that is what I was told by workers, what they wanted. They did not want Biden or, Congress or the White House involved. They wanted to deal with it the way they were dealing with it, which became the stand-up strike. So to me, obviously in politics and unions, you got to play the political game a bit. So if Biden was going to at least, I don't want to say do the favor, but at least not, try to throw his weight or body on the scale to try and make the UAW fold and accept a shitty deal. If he agreed to stay out of it, if he then took the effort, I don't think out of his kindness, out of his heart, out of him caring so much about workers, he did it to get their endorsement. But to go there and stand with the workers, obviously he did it to get their endorsement. So I can't really shit on Shawn Fain and the UAW. I mean, Donald Trump showed up and spoke at a non-union hall and basically shit on the UAW. Donald Trump, his answer for the 2008-2009 financial crash was pay them less and try and give them less benefits, UAW and other unions. He's been anti-union his whole business career and political career. So you might say, well, Jordan, that's fine, but he didn't need to endorse Biden. Well, what did you want the UAW to do? They kind of owed Biden for staying out of it, for not putting his body on the scale, for publicly during the UAW strike, publicly saying, I agree with their demands. I think Biden could have went further. But, compared to what we know about Biden being a corporatist, being a servant of the banks, he kind of, by staying out of it for the most part, allowed Shawn Fain and the UAW leadership and the workers, most importantly, to, achieve a historic contract. So I'm not going to cancel the UAW like some are doing or cancel Shawn Fain. I look at actions, not whether he's endorsing Biden or not. And right now, a lot of people are despondent on the left. A lot of people are despondent among progressives because nothing's happening through Congress. The squad might as well be asleep at the switch. Bernie might as well be retired. Biden is obviously not providing us anything. As I've been saying, and Status Coup has been covering, the action is with the UAW and the resurgence of organized labor. I give you an example, what they just sent out today. It's not sexy. It doesn't make us feel as good as if Shawn Fain would go on stage and tell Biden where to stick it. But in terms of actually regaining strength among workers, this was announced today. If you have this, Colin, over 10,000 auto workers signed union cards across 13 non-union automakers in major milestone for historic organizing drive. Over 10,000 auto workers across 13 non-union companies have signed union cards to join the UAW as momentum builds across the auto industry for better wages, benefits, and rights on the job. The major milestone comes less than 90 days after UAW members ratified record contracts after the Big Three. To be clear, less than 3 months after the UAW and Fain, in really a first of its kind, they all went on strike at the same time. I understand a lot of people wanted every plant to go out and, go nuclear. They did it a different way with the stand-up strike, staggering it plant to plant, throwing off the big three companies. But just 3 months later, they're already organizing at Volkswagen, Mercedes, to trying to do it at Tesla, Honda, and they've gotten 10,000 signatures, and mostly in southern plants, which is not easy, to join the UAW. You might say, well, okay, but how's this going to help me? I don't work in the auto industry. The auto industry, there is big domino effects to other industries from the auto industry. Even if they are able to unionize one or two non-union auto shops with big, name brand auto companies into the UAW, that will have a ripple effect to other industries. You might see, industries we never thought would have union campaigns, whether it be in retail, the service industry, et cetera, take the lead if UAW is successful in unionizing non-union shops. Not just that they have gotten 10,000 union signatures, which, by the way, the fact that they've gotten 10,000 union signatures, meaning workers at these non-union shops, Volkswagen, Mercedes, have signed on that they want to join the union. That means we're going to probably see a union election, maybe more than one, pretty soon, because you only need to show 30% interest or 30% support at each location to get granted an election by the National Labor Relations Board. So it's easy, and I understand the visceral reaction, fuck UAW, fuck Shawn Fain, because they endorse Biden. but I'm actually looking at the results, not who they endorsed. And I think this is major news for the working class. They have not taken their foot off the gas. They have not taken a vacation after the successful contract they just went on strike for. They're going full throttle. You could disagree with me if you want, but that's what I think. I want to show a quick clip before we take calls, because on top of the on the ground reporting we're doing in East Palestine, Flint, John Farina has been covering. He's covered over 20 of these pro-Palestine protests in New York City and DC for us. That costs money. So please support us. StatusCoup.com/join. Obviously, we got to pay John. It costs money to broadcast with our live view. If you can't support us monthly, maybe a one-time donation, a super chat, StatusCoup.com/donate, whatever you could do. But we're also trying to expand with more freelancers. So we recently had Jacob from the Valley Labor Report. Definitely subscribe to the Valley Labor Report. He's in Alabama, so he went down to the Mercedes plant that is trying to unionize with the UAW, and he interviewed Mercedes workers. We had about a 45-minute video with his interviews we put up yesterday. So if you missed that, definitely check it out. Didn't get a lot of views. It was on a Sunday. I don't know if YouTube shenanigans again, but definitely check that out. Give it a click, watch it. But here's a short little snippet of his interviews. Again, Jake with Valley Labor Report. They do great union coverage of union activity in Alabama and around the country. That's at Valley Labor Report on YouTube. Definitely subscribe. Let's take a look at some of his interviews.
If the employees plays a part in what the benefits are, you should come out better, because the employer is only going to give what they think that is necessary to keep the employees. They're not going to give any extra.
The work hours, they're crazy, too long. They say it's
What are you usually working now?
I work from 6:15 in the morning to 6:15 in the evening.
And then over the last several years, they quit giving us raises. Then in 2020, they introduced two-tier pay for no reason. The profits were through the roof. Why? And it's just like the greed took over. So, you know, they look at the Hyundais and Kias of the world, and Volkswagens who started their workers off making a less salary. And I think they said, we regret we ever tried to even come close to the big three, and we'll rectify that. We'll take all the new guys, we'll pay them less, we'll get these old guys fired or retired.
These people are here doing the same job, working the same hours side by side, and being paid a different wage just based off of what, if they were hired before or after 2020.
And I was hoping that, more of us would say, hey, if we stand together, anything's possible. We can do this. And I'm still hoping for that.
So again, that was Mercedes workers in Alabama that Jake from the Valley Labor Report went down and interviewed for us. Got to pay him too. Again, you're getting a theme. We're trying to do more, but we don't take any money from the corporate fuckers. So we're hoping you could support us. But it is a major deal. It is not easy in Alabama to get people to sign union cards. There's a lot of intimidation, a lot of threats at these non-union shops, particularly in the South. So the fact that between the Mercedes in Alabama, the Volkswagen in Tennessee that UAW is trying to organize right now, a couple other places, that they have 10,000 signatures already in just a few months of this campaign is major. I know it's not as sexy as the election year. I know it's not as top of mind right now because obviously what's going on in Gaza. But this is where it's at, in my opinion, for the working class in actually getting tangible structural results in terms of wages, benefits, etc. With that said, let's get going on taking some calls. I'll try to go as long as my wife will allow me because, we have a baby. All right, ready? All right, I got to go back. My shows, host a show, start a show, web, ready, connect to show. Okay. All right, Colin. Is this what you need here?
Yep, perfect.
All right. And don't be shy. Call in. I'll take your calls. And if you have questions about East Palestine, again, Lewis will be going back there Wednesday. He'll be there for a few days covering the 1-year anniversary of Norfolk Southern chemically nuking East Palestine. So we got a lot of great stuff coming up. And I should be, fingers crossed, done with the most recent edits for my book this week, which will then free me up, hopefully, to go back on the ground. So a lot going on. All right. Are those test callers or those are real callers, Colin? All right. Auto screen. Are these callers, Colin?
Yeah. It's just waiting for the auto screen to finish.
Oh, okay. So can I take them or no?
Oh yeah. You can grab anyone anytime.
All right, cool. Let's do it. I think Craig, you there?
Hi there. Hi, Jordan.
Hey there.
Hi, Jordan. It's me.
Hey there.
I'm a con. Jordan, can you hear me?
I can.
Listen, Jordan. I sent a super chat a year ago. You said you don't endorse violence as a means of achieving victory, especially on the Democratic side. But here's the thing. I think the Democratic Party might die of its own cancer. I mean, I've seen and heard how far they're willing to take it just to make sure they stay in office. And after what happened in Palestine and what Nancy Pelosi is saying, I think things are going to get rough by 2028.
What do you anticipate? Why 2028? And when you say rough, you mean, more violence in the country?
I mean that the more people. I mean, we didn't expect that Trump's base would just disappear after the 2020 election,
right?
And it turns out they haven't. But what the Democrats are doing, they're showing that they're willing to completely write them off as an inconvenience, and January 6th didn't give them much to think about.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think that it'll take, you think there's going to be what in 2028 specifically?
I think that the more Democrats, elected or not elected, try to stay within DC, the more that the Democratic Party will die a very painful death. And then more of Trump's people will try and take over.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I agree, but not completely, because I don't really think it's only a Democratic Party thing. I think basically over the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, I think there has been kind of an awakening among young people, among older people that were kind of checked out of politics for a while. Definitely among voters of color on both sides, Black voters, Hispanic voters that might have just automatically voted Democrat a while ago. But I think more and more people, due to the 40-year neoliberal bubble really starting to pop, I think the last 2 or 3 years of inflation helped accelerate that because people are rightly pissed off. Then you add in the climate apocalypse, which is getting worse. Now you're adding in seeing a genocide play out in real time. I actually think, I hope not, but I think you could see more violence, but not only because of the Democratic Party. I think you can see more violence just in general because I think people are fucking fed up, period, with our vile neoliberal politics on both sides. Right now, I think it's more towards the Democratic Party because they're in power. But if let's say Biden wins again, which at the moment doesn't look good, I think that could accelerate more anger and frustration of the country and potential violence. And if Trump wins, I think it could do the same thing because let's not get it twisted. Trump would be doing the same thing right now when it comes to Gaza, maybe even worse. And Trump's not going to do anything for workers or anything like that. So I hate to say it. I tend to agree with you. When I'm on the road, the violent tendencies seem to be more on the right. But I think you're seeing a lot of young people. They're peacefully protesting now. But how many years can you peacefully protest and things keep getting worse before those peaceful protests turn violent?
I mean, if you hear that a member of the Democratic Party was shot by a disgruntled voter, I mean, what do you think is going to be the instant reaction by the media? That this is all Bernie Sanders' fault, or this is all AOC's fault, that this person was killed?
Well, if you listen to Nancy Pelosi, it would be Russia's fault. Because everything's apparently Russia's fault.
I mean, Hillary Clinton basically started this Russiagate thing, but I don't think she's mellowed with age, and I think she's gonna try and maintain power in the Democratic Party until she dies. And I don't think there's anything to shut Obama up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I'm not saying it only from a moral perspective that I don't believe in violence. I don't believe throughout history, strategically, it's effective at achieving real change. With that said, at the end of the day, you can't really, I can't with a straight face say I do not understand the instinct for people, because you're told in a so-called democracy, which we do not have, you are told to protest, make yourself heard, peaceful protest, organize, lobby, call your congressman or woman, go to DC, march. Well, I've been doing this on the ground almost a decade, and I've covered a lot of fucking marches, and I've covered a lot of protests. So have others at Status Coup. And at a certain point, I don't criticize people for protesting, but at a certain point, you realize you're kind of just chasing your tail between your legs and going around the same blocks, chanting the same shit to deaf ears. They'll let you protest, but if you get a little too out of hand, they'll crush you through their personal security, which is the police. I hope there's not violence, but if the Democratic Party, and let's not let the Republican Party off the hook either, they're not helping out. They're not doing anything for workers. They're certainly not doing, they love war just as much as the Democratic Party. Do not get that twisted. At a certain point, this is how revolution happens, violent revolutions. Chris Hedges has talked a lot about late stage capitalism and how America looks like other empires that have fallen did in the final stages. And I can't say I disagree. So I got to take the next caller. So thanks for calling in.
All right. Thank you, Jordan.
No problem. All right. And by the way, smash the like button, share this live stream. I want to remind you, this week, Lewis is headed back to East Palestine for us. It is his 5th reporting trip, 5, to East Palestine, Ohio. You might have forgotten, because the media sure has forgotten and abandoned this important story. East Palestine, Ohio, on Saturday is 1 year since Norfolk Southern's train crashed over this small town in Ohio and unnecessarily detonated cancerous chemicals over East Palestine. Status Coup has led the coverage for nearly a year now, and Lewis has been there, will be there 5 times. We'll be there this Wednesday for several days, including the 1-year anniversary on Saturday, talking to residents who sadly are still sick, many of them growing sicker. Biden has not went to East Palestine. The EPA and Norfolk Southern are sweeping this under the rug. I have talked to Aaron Brockovich. I have talked to others. Sadly, they believe this is going to be one of the worst cancer clusters in America in a few years. Frankly, I have talked to experts who say this is a mini Chernobyl. in a normal media industry, in a normal, healthy journalistic system, this would still be on the front pages. It is not. All we are seeing now are stories coming out that are public relations blowjobs to Norfolk Southern for helping out and, making right what they broke in East Palestine. Go talk to the residents of East Palestine. They haven't made it right. So I'm asking you, if you're not yet a Status Coup member, we need you. This reporting is very expensive. Sending Lewis, our cameraman, John. I will be back on the road soon. We're paying others to do freelance journalism for us. If you're not yet a member, please sign up. StatusCoup.com/join. You could join us for $5 to $10 a month. It makes a huge difference. Outside of that, if you're already a member and you want to chip in extra, please contribute just for this trip. StatusCoup.com/trip funding. That page, you could make a one-time donation, or you could set it for once a month. Any amount really matters. Of course, we appreciate the bigger amounts, but smaller amounts really make a big difference too. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you see any other independent outlet doing the type of on-the-ground reporting across this country? No. And by the way, I'm not shitting on them. It's hard and it's very expensive. It takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of investigative reporting. It takes a lot of effort to constantly be on the road. It takes a lot of funding, and it's very hard to do it without corporations funding you. We've done it from the bottom up. So I'm not criticizing others that don't do it, but to be clear, we have an extra financial bar compared to others because of the travel, because of the on-the-ground reporting. So please support us if you can. Again, statuscoup.com/join or statuscoup.com/trip funding. All right, David, you're up.
Hey, Jordan, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hey, I wanted to, I really appreciated the last caller and everything that you were saying back. I wanted to talk about the Pelosi-Russia thing.
Sure.
I watched the clip, and she had, I think one of the things that she nitpicked at was like the quality of the signs. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I think there are things like that going on with like a contemporary COINTELPRO, like inside of the mass of everything. Like maybe there's a presence of Russia, but maybe there's a presence of the FBI already, a presence of the CIA already. And of course, like there is organic sentiment as well. But the thing is that what gets worrisome is like where the sentiment is getting steered. And like how you were just saying, the way protesters are always kind of chasing their tail, right? You kind of wind up somewhere nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm curious your thoughts on that.
John has been covering the protests for us, so I can't really comment like up close on the signs. I've been finishing my book. But what I can say is, at the end of the day, New York City is New York City. Washington, D.C. is Washington, D.C. I'm not saying that it takes work to organize these things, but it's not like super hard to get a lot of people out, particularly, younger people. And there's just zero evidence that this has anything to do with Russia or China or anything like that. I think this has to do with a lot of young people, frankly. I'm talking millennials, I'm talking Gen Z, particularly Jewish Americans, have been indoctrinated. And they did not have about Israel, and they did not have access to all the information they have now through social media, through all the different YouTube channels that, provide history, through reporters that are reporting, the background and the history of, from 1948 all the way to today. I mean, pre-1948, we could go all the way to the Ottoman Empire. So I think a lot of young people are, I don't want to say getting woke, because obviously that's overused, but getting informed.
No, for sure.
And I think also,
let me try putting it like this.
There's one more thing. And I wish I would have mentioned it in the video I did on this earlier. I also think there's a bit of a, I don't want to paint a broad brush, because not all boomers think this way. And I don't even think she's a boomer. I think she's the great, what do they call it? The greater generation. I think there's a bit of like the, okay, boomer, Cold War hysteria brain, that you can't just turn that off with figures like Pelosi and others. Because remember, in Ryan Grimm's book, he exposed that I guess AOC, in conversations with her, she was saying that Nancy Pelosi was telling AOC that Russia was behind the, defund ICE stuff, like just crazy boomer, old senile. So I think part of this, like, yes, it's disingenuous, but I also think she might believe it because I think she's stuck in like the Cold War 1980 mindset, like so many other of these politicians are in, which is why we need to get rid of, besides them being corrupt, most of them are way too fucking old. And they're still thinking back in like the 1980s and 90s. So that's what I think. But listen, we've covered enough of these protests. The people are out there because they're seeing in real time the slaughter of innocent people.
I don't disagree that there's organic people out there. Like I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
You know, there definitely are, and it's because of the reasons that you're saying. But I also think, I mean, do you think that there's zero FBI presence at these things?
I think there's
FBI
FBI and CIA presence
yeah.
across the board, wherever.
Yeah.
In some cases, it's bigger and more advanced. You know, for example, at Standing Rock, literally the FBI was working with the Department of Homeland Security to infiltrate the camp, and they did. They infiltrated to try and cozy up. They had moles in there pretending to be water protectors, and so there's to that level. There's certainly been FBI, CIA interference, I believe, in the Black Lives Matter protests to try and sow division, to try and sow chaos, to try and get intel. Yeah. So, of course, do I believe that there is FBI, CIA, probably some other agencies on the ground there pretending to be, with the cause? Yes. That's where it stops, though. I don't think there's any Russian. And by the way, it doesn't even make
Russian
sense.
Thing, I think that's a talk. I think that's a playbook talking point. I think that's just a load of bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing with the advent of social media and that being a change, though, do you think that there's a profiling back end to the way that the social media data is being captured? Everybody has a profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck
but
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you, do you have quantifications on your sense of the scale of that?
I get an alert like every 3 months from Twitter, like, hey, confirm your number and this shit. And I just like press skip later. Cause
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess it's like we could speculate about scale forever. It's a dangerous like road of inquiry. You know what I mean? But I think it's something to speak to because
Mark
Pelosi
Zuckerberg's already been caught selling your data to every third.
Yeah. No, for sure, man, for sure. No, I know, but I think it's like the relationship of like how these things become actionable because when you have a protest, you have a mob. It's this big swarm, agent provocateurs, this sort of thing. Like because if they are using that kind of stuff, they're really creating the evidence for what they're doing.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely.
Anyway, all right. Well, yeah. To that end, thanks so much for taking my call, man. I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. By the way, let me know in the chat. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was telling the audience. Let me know in the chat. Would you like us to do these call shows more often? I'm for it. I personally would love to do call shows like midday around like, noon, 1 o'clock. Colin's probably listening and saying, shoot me in the head because he's already doing too much. I'd love to do call shows midday on top of our normal live stream. The problem is we tend to get less viewers midday. People are at work, whatever. But, maybe we could do a poll, Colin. Would people want more of these call-in shows? Because I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people. And if so, do they want it at 5 o'clock? Well, let's first find out, do you want more call-in shows? Then we'll get specific on, what time would work. All right, let's take another call. Omar.
Hey, this is Alvaro. I gotta ask you a question relating to the immigration so-called crisis. What's your view, and what's your view of the Republicans taking that as like a tool for the campaign? Because I've been looking at articles. I knew that Joe Biden doesn't want to deal with immigration. That's why he kept doing that Remain in Mexico. He kept following during the process the same thing as Donald Trump, and also criticizing his things, but also doing the same thing. What's your view of the immigration situation?
So I'm very careful because I've learned, for example, with Flint and covering Flint, I've learned I hate when people who have never been somewhere and don't know, basically only know as much as Google or watching cable news. I hate hearing from people, oh, Flint's water was fixed, 5 years ago. What are you talking about? Obviously, that's not true. So I don't like declaring that something's bullshit or not if I've never seen it up close. I've never been to the border. I know a little bit about it. It's not something I've covered extensively, but I don't like saying it. Oh, it's overblown. There's no crisis at all, because I'm not somebody in Arizona who have had people come over and maybe been had intimidation or violence. Same thing in Texas and other border towns. With that said, I don't want to say there's no issues. I don't want to say there's not a uptick in people coming over here. Do I think it's the crisis that the Republican Party has made it? No, I do not. I actually don't particularly think they care about border security that much. I think they care about stoking bigotry and fear of brown people and people from Central and South America. And that's what this whole border scare is all about from the Republican Party. I also think they don't want to solve it because we're seeing right now, literally, like Trump is brazenly telling the Republican Party, do not negotiate, do not make a border deal that Democrats are offering, because they want it as an election issue. To be fair, I think on the other side, I don't really think the Democratic Party wanted to codify Roe v. Wade and make that a law of the land because they wanted to use abortion as an election issue. So there's a lot of issues that the parties claim is like their top thing, and they have a hard on about immigration or abortion, but when they have the opportunity to do something, they don't do it because they want to perpetually fundraise and use it as an election issue. I also think it's not covered in the Fox News hysteria, the New York Times, Washington Post. The people are not flocking here from other countries because of this delusional fantasy of, oh, America, the land of the free, and they want more opportunity. In many cases, they're flocking here because we have destroyed their countries through the drug war, through illegal coup attempts, through sanctions, through propping up dangerous drug cartels. I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but I've watched enough of these shows and done enough research. Whether it's Belize, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Middle Eastern countries, we've really dipped our toes too often into these countries, leading to economic despair, unless you're really wealthy or a cartel member, violent situations. And I don't think they're flooding here only because of the great opportunity. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think it's overblown. I don't think it's as much of a crisis as it's being made out to be, but there's a lot of money, both politically and in media, in stoking it as a crisis.
All right. And I'm going to do a follow-through. Is that all right? So with the immigration issue, it has been there for like a long, long time. And like I agree what you said. You're one of the reasons why I became a very left-wing guy, because the same thing you said. And also, I do want to talk about, like, for example, like we've been very outdated. Like the same, like the slots that we have for the H-1B visas has been changed since like the Reagan or H.W. Bush administration. And again, my parents came here illegally. I came here illegally also. I pretty know a lot of like the border situation. And one of the major dilemmas of this situation is that it used to be, let's just say a guy around my age, I'm 23, you could cross the border. You could get to like a Coyote, but now there's cartel involved, and also there's a lot of family members are coming. So then you have this more dilemma. And one of the things is about these Democrat cities, when they were saying pro-sanctuary city, it sounds good in theory. I'm pro that, but when I look at it, I'm like, maybe there was like maybe if you say that, the chickens are coming to roost, and COVID happened and remained in Mexico. there were roughly about 2 million people waiting in the border because of the expulsions. And I know, I don't know where exactly you're from. You know, I'm from Illinois, but I've been in the border a lot. What's your idea to make it easier for people to immigrate, you know, legally, and in a way to make everything good? Because my family members are undocumented, so they get exploited because they don't have a say. Like, what's your recommendation? What would you change to make it legal with E-Verify and all of that?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you the conversation I have with my Fox News loving father, who, you know, sends me Facebook posts. Why are we giving all these money to the illegals and not homeless people? And I respond to him, where is your same outrage about why are we giving all this money to Wall Street, fossil fuel companies, pharmaceutical companies, technology companies? The amount of free money we're giving them is triple the amount of money we invest in undocumented immigrants. And, you know, he has to actually think, which he doesn't love to do. I love my father, but politically he's kind of out there. So it's a lot of, you know, we're not like, the reason we have homeless people is not because we're giving so much to undocumented immigrants. We're giving way more to the corporations and the rich fucks who have bought our government. So that's number one. Number two, it's the same thing for other agencies. The border is dramatically underfunded. Not just the border, but the very agencies and entities we have to process immigration requests and applications. I mean, there's a backlog for a reason. It's because it's very, very underfunded, and there's not enough agents to go through applications, to vet, etc. So if you want, I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I'm an expert on it, but if you want the process to go faster, legal immigration, you know, more people to be able to go through the process quicker rather than waiting 10 to 15 years, you have to double or triple the amount of resources you have to go through that process. There's also another problem. Our housing stock in America has been down for a decade, 2 decades. So where are you going to put all these new people if you accelerate, if you do what I'm saying and invest a lot more money in the agencies that go through and process applications? So you need a lot more investment in border agents, the individuals and agencies that vet and go through applications, and you need to do something about America's housing stock. And also, as I would tell my dad, these folks that are coming in, they're not the ones taking your jobs. If you're watching and you're a conservative and they're taking my jobs, they're not the ones taking your jobs. Wall Street and the corporations who are literally writing these trade deals for our politicians, that has been shown. They are taking your jobs because they are allowing multinational corporations, banks, all these fucking multi-billion-dollar corporate conglomerates to basically write the legislation of NAFTA, TPP, which didn't go through, normalizing trade relations with China, you name it. They are the ones that are sending your jobs elsewhere. They are the ones that have accelerated deindustrialization of this country, shuttering your plants, shuttering down the economic engines of a lot of, communities in this country. It's not the Mexicans or those in the Middle East coming. Yeah. Do they take some jobs that are less glamorous that a lot of Americans don't want? Yes. But by and large, they're not the problem economically. It's our corrupt government. I got to go to the next person. So thanks for calling.
All right. Thank you so much.
And smash that like button. By the way, poll says right now, we said, do you want more of these call-in shows? 93% say yes. 93% say yes. So that's less than 100 votes. But so far, 72 people have voted and 92% say yes. The next poll will be, will you watch it midday? Because it would be a lot easier for me to do it midday than at 5 o'clock. Midday, let's say 12 or 1 o'clock Eastern. So maybe we could put that in there. Would you probably, one sec. Let us know, Colin, if you could do that poll. Let's see what time people would watch it. All right. Now, or would they be able to call in at that time, more importantly? All right. Next one. You're up. I think your name is Richard.
Yes, good evening.
Hey there.
You know, I heard your opening monologue talking about the organizing that's being done by the UAW in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
But to do it on the backs of the blood of the children of Palestine, 14,000 children murdered, how many maimed, losing limbs, and you're going to organize and not stand up against genocide because you're organizing? That's insane. How can you say something like that? I mean, I agree with mostly everything you say, but what a premise to put out there.
Well,
that you organize 10,000 workers.
No. That's not what. That's
14,000
not.
kids
That's
were
not what.
shredded.
That's not what I was trying to say. I was saying I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater because I care very much.
Well, that's what you're doing. You're throwing the Palestinians under the bus, under
No.
the bombs of America.
Well,
That's what you're doing. You're throwing these children and people.
Well,
of
the
Palestine under the bombs.
the UAW has come out calling for a ceasefire. They've done that weeks ago. So your main issue is that they endorsed.
That don't mean anything. They endorsed that war criminals, Genocide Joe.
I understand.
You know, it's like saying, don't do bad things to me while I'm doing evil. I mean, the man is evil. Well, the government is evil. The government is our enemy.
Mm-hmm. But what I'm getting at is, what's the solution then if you disagree with them to basically not to
organize.
I'm asking, like, for me,
organize,
for what I was trying to say is, I don't agree with them endorsing Biden, but I'm not going to just cancel the UAW or not still cover their organizing efforts because
No, I'm not saying to throw them under the bus. I'm saying you got to challenge that leadership to make such a decision like that, to endorse Biden. I saw 3 women who stood up at one of the meetings yesterday. I forget, this Breakthrough News, one of these other very good podcasts also, and 3 women stood up and they said, you know, that's terrible that you endorse Biden. These are UAW workers, and they're getting many signatures together to protest that terrible endorsement of a genocidal maniac. I mean, and it's terrible, you know.
Yeah, I think that
organized.
I think that they made the political calculation that he stayed out of the way. He supported us. He didn't throw.
No.
I'm telling you. I'm not defending it. I'm telling you. I think that's what their I think that's what their calculation was. Fain and the others.
They calculate it for their convenience. Most of these, you know, no matter how they play ball with one another. Look, the only good unions that lasted were the sellout unions. I worked in a sellout union, local union number 3, electricians in New York City. A sellout union. They played ball. They lasted. The good unions with the communists in it and the socialists, they got destroyed. They broke them apart. They destroyed those unions.
Well,
and the ones that lasted were the lackeys.
Well,
the sellout unions.
If you look at it, and I'm not disagreeing with your point about Gaza, but if you look at it, I mean, you could call them what they want. Have you seen this kind of results from an American union in the last decade or two, where they're already?
Yeah, but. But you're dismissing them.
I'm not
endorsing a genocidal maniac.
Right, but the UA.
I mean, what are you doing?
No, but I'm
just trying to push that. Dismiss that.
But they're an auto union.
Because I'm feeding somebody on the corner who's hungry, and I'm killing 10 people around the block, and I say, wait a second, I'm a good guy. Look, I'm feeding that homeless guy over there, but meanwhile, you're doing damage around the corner and hurting people.
No.
I mean,
I think you're not understanding what I'm getting at. You said the only good unions are the sellout unions that don't go along to get along.
Yeah, the ones that lasted. Yeah,
right.
That's why you had no labor movement.
But my point
over
is,
the last 40 years.
My point is, I've been paying attention to politics for about 20 years. I haven't seen.
I'm a little older than you. I'm 77.
No, I know. I haven't seen a union in the last
country forever.
I haven't seen a union in the last 10, 20 years be this effective in terms of the contract they got and now organizing these others. I'm not saying brush aside what's going on in Gaza. I'm saying, I'm looking at the results and they have momentum. Should they have endorsed Biden? Should they have said we can't, in good conscience, endorse him?
No. They shouldn't have endorsed him, Biden. There's no way you can justify the UAW endorsing a genocidal maniac like Biden, Genocide Joe. I mean, you just can't do it.
I understand.
You just can't do it.
I separate what I separate. I understand why they did it. I don't agree with it. I understand why they did it. Those are two different things. But with
it's a sellout to me then.
Yeah.
It's a sellout.
I understand.
I mean, you still could organize. You still could do your organizing and stand up for workers.
Yeah.
And you don't have to support a genocidal son of a bitch, a criminal.
I agree.
You can do your organizing. Nobody's saying no. But then you can't come along and say, well, since I'm getting all these people organized and I'm getting them to join the union, well, I could put aside, the genocide that they're endorsing, vote for Joe Biden, and Joe Biden's an anti-labor guy anyway. He broke that goddamn train strike.
Well, they
could have got a good deal, that son of a bitch. He broke that strike.
Well, I think that's the part
He's a scumbag.
I think that's the part also. I think Sean Fain knows this. I don't think he's a stupid person. But people need to remember,
none of them are stupid. They're criminals.
I think
they're criminal people. That's the most stupid thing when people say, "Oh, they're stupid." I look at that. I say, "Stupid? No, you're stupid to say that."
Right.
They're not stupid.
Got it.
And it's a shame. The only thing is, I hate to see what's going to come. I've got a lot of blood in the streets because you got an occupying army in all these states.
Yeah.
Like the police force in New York, they're an occupying army. I mean, people,
Well, the police in America the police in America are capitalism's army. That's what they are. They are there.
Yeah, and the courts and the judges, and it's and the only way you're going to change that, they're not going to give it up easy. Thank God for Russia, thank God for China, Iran, thank God for the BRICS. Because at least they were a counterbalance. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it was a sad day. And that Gorbachev, another sellout. But anyway, that's another story.
I mean, my mentality is this. I just covered the strike last year. It was the most invigorated I've personally been among.
Which one? Which strike are you talking about?
The UAW strike.
UAW?
Yeah, I was on the ground. We were on the ground. It's the most. It's the most success. And forget the results. It's the most energized I've seen workers in 5-10 years. So for me, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. You can't just separate Gaza and put that aside because of that. I guess my mentality is basically, I think the unwritten agreement with Biden and Fain was stay out of the way and I'll consider endorsing you. He did stay out of the way. But I think conditions also changed. I think conditions also changed.
No.
Right. I think conditions changed because this hadn't been going on during the UAW strike for the most part. So I think I don't think Fain should have endorsed
because the workers in the UAW they didn't need Biden. I mean, they had the power.
Right.
People have the power when they realized it. I mean, Biden was insignificant in a way when they were all those workers stuck together. He didn't have to kiss his ass. This UAW president now. He didn't have to go and kiss his ass.
Right. Well,
his strength was in his membership. Not in Biden. Not stepping in.
I also think there's a separate issue here. Remember, a big part of Fain's appeal in the beginning and why people said they like him is because he wasn't being heavy-handed. They weren't just the leadership is going to make endorsements without the rank and file. I don't really know how democratic this process was of endorsing Joe Biden. I doubt they took a vote. I doubt they.
I would imagine not.
So I think that kind of goes against what they've been saying in terms of we want buy-in and we want to represent the democratic will of the membership. From what I was told,
well, these three union members from the car union, the UAW.
Yeah.
They have 1,000 signatures already.
Yeah.
From union members who are challenging this decision to endorse Biden.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a shameful thing he did.
Yeah. And by the way, I was told when Biden went, and obviously when he went to speak at the conference and people protested over ceasefire, I was told that Biden was telling, or Biden's people were telling certain UAW workers to take off their stickers or put down their signs before he went on stage. I asked to interview one of the UAW workers who was told, put down your stuff. He wouldn't do it. I wasn't there, but that's what I was told from a couple of UAW workers, that Biden's team was telling them to put down their ceasefire signs, things like that. So, it does not seem that UAW leadership is currently listening to its membership.
No, they're all bought and paid for in a way. I mean, they give them a few crumbs they let this guy get, and what do you got to suck their ass now? and let people get killed and bombed? I mean, oh God. You know, I was in a union. I used to talk on my job. I never forget. I was a foreman, and I had to go down to a foreman's committee once a year to renew your foreman's card. I went down there. I knew this guy. He walked up to me. He says, "Richie, you know, you got to stop talking on the jobs." I turned and I looked at him. I said, "What'd you say?" He said, "You got to stop talking on the jobs." And I said to myself, "Holy crap, there's stool pigeons all around you." And what was I saying? I said, when that Reagan fired those air traffic controllers, I said they should have threw the gauntlet down. Whatever labor they had in 1981 or 2 wasn't much, but you should have called a nationwide strike.
Yeah.
Labor should have stood up then.
Yeah.
They folded like an accordion. They folded right up like dogs.
That is true.
And it's shameful, you know. It's a shame. And I'm just afraid of the bloodshed you're going to see, because when people are in bad enough position, when your kid ain't eating regular, you're going out there, you know, and you're not just going to be, like you say, marching in circles, because they laugh at you when you go out there and march, because you do it for a day or two and then you go home and it don't mean anything. But these kids are really standing up for Palestine now. Young kids, it's invigorating.
I also think there's one other element that is not being talked about enough. What Biden's doing, this blank check for Israel, that's actually long term going to endanger America. Remember, and I'm not defending bin Laden, but one of the reasons bin Laden hated America, why Al Qaeda was created, was Israel.
You're talking to the choir.
So
why all these people emigrating here? Because we're bombing their countries, we're destroying their nations.
So you don't think some of these Palestinian people who are losing all of their families, their kids, their brothers.
No, they're going to love America. They're going to have good feelings towards us.
Exactly. So they're not only going to want revenge on Israel. They're going to want revenge on Israel's, benefactor.
Oh, and that's another point. That you talk about talking already. It's fucking disgusting. That fucking Israel should have been hit already. All those Arab countries, they should have made a pact. At 12 o'clock on Monday morning, everybody hits Israel all at once from every angle.
By the way, I just want to
that's fucking Tel Aviv.
I don't know if you. I
want to see their buildings falling down.
I don't know if you drink, but I just want to go to a bar with you just to listen to your accent. You got that?
You said that to me before I called up one
time. You got that My Cousin Vinny accent.
I don't remember. I went on a tirade too.
Oh man, where are you? Brooklyn?
It's funny you said the same thing to me.
You're Brooklyn?
No, Manhattan. I come from Manhattan.
Oh, man, I'm from Long Island originally, but you got quite the accent there.
Okay.
I'm not saying to flatten Israel. I don't believe in that, but I do agree.
Oh, yeah, they need it. They need it. You know, they were very religious people. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Before we call this thing, we'll flatten them a little bit. That's the only thing they understand. They're animals. Calling the Palestinian animals. Those son of a bitches that they are. What ugly human? Are they human beings? They're creatures. And they need to be whacked. They got to be whacked.
All right.
That's what they understand. I mean, it's unfortunate to say that, but that's the bottom line. And then they'll get it through their head. You can't talk to these people. I mean, what you're doing to children? I mean, come on. How can you talk to these people? And I'm so pissed off at all those Arab countries. Oh, they're not doing nothing. I mean, they all should have got together and they should have whacked that pig in Israel. They should have whacked it. They should have did it. And if whatever happens, happens. You got to throw the gauntlet down sometimes. You know what I'm saying? At some point, you just can't let it go on and on and on and on and on. You know what I'm saying? If you got to die on your fucking feet, not on your belly. And that's what I say. Enough with that Israel. Enough with them for 75 years. And backed up by this criminal government of ours. The evil empire. When Reagan talked about an evil empire, and he called Russia the evil empire. Oh, what a disgrace.
Right.
Thank God for the BRIC nations. Thank God for Russia and China. It's a counterweight again against this maniacal United States, you know. But anyway, I took a lot of your time. I appreciate you giving me so much time.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Take care.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too. And by the way, just for a disclaimer, for YouTube purposes, and because I don't agree, we're not advocating for nuking or wiping Israel off the map here at Status Coup. Just want to make that clear. We're not advocating for that. However, I am advocating for Biden to pick up the phone and say the checks are stopped. No more money until you stop this bombing. And then you go back to the pre-1967 lines. You give back Gaza. You give back the West Bank. You pull out of the part of East Jerusalem you're occupying. You create a two-state solution or you create a one-state solution. But the status quo cannot continue. The status quo cannot continue. Let me take another call. Thomas. You there, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey there.
Yeah, I've been listening to your previous conversations
with Tony Soprano's brother.
Yeah, and before I get to my question, I've got to say I kind of I get where you're coming from, and I also agree with that no, we don't need to have any more violence, because I believe in what's known as nonviolent communications. And I think we need more of that in America.
Well,
so there's that. And then
listen,
question,
I should have said this to him, but the bottom line is this is not just something that is about Israel and Palestine, right? It's not just starting in 1948. The America fucked the Jews, did not get involved in World War II, did not get involved in the Holocaust until it was much too late, which caused, obviously, millions of people to die. Millions of East European Jews to flee, which led to them going to Israel. That's not me defending the creation of Israel or anything like that. That's just the reality of what happened. So it's not like this just starts in 1948. The Jews have been screwed throughout history. The Palestinians and Arabs have been screwed throughout history. The Irish have been screwed throughout history. And America and many other countries have played a role in either looking the other way or helping to screw them. So I don't really think the answer to Israel-Palestine is to go in and attack Israel, because people in Israel are innocent. My wife is Israeli. She has family in Israel. They're not, they're not all, in support of, slaughter in Gaza. I know I've been to Israel. A lot of younger people share the same beliefs as younger people here in America. I don't really think the answer is, well, let's give them a taste of their medicine and, start, killing people in Israel. The killing of innocents in one area, the answer to that is not killing more innocents in another area. The answer is we need to right the wrongs of the last, 50, 60, 70 years. And you need to create a real Palestinian country with self-determination, frankly, reparations for what has been done to them, economic reparations, in my opinion, and not one of these bullshit like, oh, we'll give them a couple isolated areas and call it a country. Nothing can be done to erase the people that have been killed. Frankly, I think Benjamin Netanyahu and a lot of these other people should be at The Hague, including Joe Biden. But I don't agree that the answer is let's go, wipe Israel off the face of the earth, because there's children in Israel who are innocent. There's parents in Israel who have nothing to do with this. There's a lot of people who have been demanding a ceasefire in Israel and protests in Israel for weeks and months too. So I disagree with my friend. I forget his name, but this problem goes much further than 1948. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. And like I said before, is I believe in nonviolent communications to get to a solution. But then my actual real question is, do you think that the 1% in this country and around the world has an addiction to money?
I think the 1% in this world, 1% have an addiction to power. I think money is just a vessel for that power. I think the 1%, not all of them, because there's a few good apples like Ben.
So I'm not saying not all.
Yeah, Ben from Ben and Jerry's happens to be credit to Ben and Jerry's. If you don't know, they just voluntarily recognize their workers who formed a union. So they're not all terrible. I mean, there's some wealthy people throughout history that do great things. But I think the most vile of the 1%, yes, they like the money. But at a certain point, it's not really about, well, I just need that fifth yacht. It's about power. It's about attention. It's about narcissism. It's about ego. It's about having control over others. It's about status. And I think that all goes into power. So I think the 1% are addicted to power. There are some people that just love money because they're materialistic and, they happen to love wearing fancy clothes or driving fancy cars and the thrill it gives them. But in my experience, more times than not, it's the addiction to power and status than physical money or the benefits of money.
Which leads to this addiction, whether the power, the money, whatever your viewers apply to, whatever. It'd be one thing if this addiction would be affecting their own personal life, but it's not. It's actually affecting everybody's life.
Yep. And I also, by the way, I think the same could be said for our politicians. I mean, they all become filthy rich, but I think they're addicted to the power. And at the end of the day, that's why I have a hard time at this point, even like, I don't want to say covering elections. We're a news outlet, so we'll cover it. But caring, I guess. I don't want Donald Trump to be president, but I don't care about elections as much as I used to, because at the end of the day, all of this save democracy shit, the fundraising emails, the media campaigns, democracy is at risk, yada, yada. It's all bullshit. We don't have a democracy. Let me repeat. We don't have a democracy. We have an oligarchy. When it is normalized, when your government, a representative republic, or whatever it's called, when it's normalized that 75% of the time, this has been reported, 75% of the time, our elected officials in in Congress are off premises at a separate location, dialing for dollars. When that is your so-called democracy, you don't have a democracy. You have a bought government. You have a corrupt government. Okay. When the majority of the time, the 2014 Princeton study said this, when the majority of the time, the popular will, what the masses want, is enacted into legislation, maybe less than 10% of the time, but 50% of the time, what the wealthy want is enacted into legislation. That's not a democracy. So we could have this fairy tale sentiment of, oh, we're fighting for a democracy because, oh, technically we're allowed to vote. Oh, technically we have free speech. But how free are you if you have to work 2 to 3 jobs? How free are you if you have to choose between medicine for your kids or the electric bill? How free are you if, you literally could die if you lose your job because you want to have health insurance? Spare me a democracy. And by the way, spare me, not that I'm a fan of Hillary Clinton, but spare me that we have a democracy if she got 3 million more votes than Trump, yet Trump wins. Spare me, we're a democracy if the Supreme Court could fucking steal an election, which happened in the year 2000. I mean, we have an electoral college, which by default, we don't have a democracy because the person with the most votes doesn't win. So sorry, I just went on a long-winded monologue, but at the end of the day, our problem, I think our problem is bigger than just, oh, the Democratic Party is, versus the Republican Party. It's corruption. We have a corrupt system. That is what, in the first place, long ago, I have a very, very different view of them now. But that is what attracted me in the first place to the Young Turks back in the day, and why I wanted to work for the Young Turks back in the day, because I felt they were the only outlet back then addressing the root rot, which was, we have a system, as Cenk used to say, of legalized bribery. That is ultimately the poison of all things. That is why I believe, honestly, Biden is not calling for a ceasefire, why Biden is not cutting off Israel, because he doesn't want to lose the donors. Because it's true. Some of the wealthiest donors, I'm not saying it, it's not anti-Semitic, I'm Jewish, but some of the wealthiest donors in this country are Jewish and pro-Israel. So that's all connected to, we have a purchased Congress who make decisions not based on us, not based on morality, not based on the 14,000 kids in Gaza that have been killed or the over 30,000 total people, but based on, well, we don't want to piss off the donors, so we'll look the other way to a genocide. So, that's a long-winded answer, but I hope I answered you.
To wrap things up here, I don't know if anyone really knows this, but when I was going to school, I was taught about no taxation without representation. But I recently have learned from the Legal Eagle that actually that was never even put into the Constitution at any time. And I believe that the not all of them, but the ones who are corrupt business owners and 1% have taken advantage of that actually not being a thing.
Okay. Gotcha. That's interesting. Well, all I know, not much is going to change in this country through elections, Congress, about telling people not to vote. Obviously, people fought and died for that right. So by all means, vote. But I think we're all at this point, and I've had to learn this too myself through years and years of reporting on the ground. At this point, we're kidding ourselves to think that mass structural change to uncorrupt a, by definition, corrupt system that is just flooded in money is going to come through. Oh, if we just get, this person in office or this couple people in Congress, it's going to come through people outside of electoral politics. That's why I understand people's anger at the UAW for the endorsement of Biden, but that is why I have been so energized by this resurgence in workers organizing through union campaigns, strikes, also tenants unions, other things. Because I think people have started to realize, Paul Revere ain't coming from Washington, D.C. The rescue choppers are not coming from the White House, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. I hate to say it, a third party candidate, even though I would love Jill Stein or Cornel West as president rather than either of these two corrupt fucks, Biden or Trump. Even if Cornel West got in there, even if Jill Stein got in there, even if Bernie would have gotten in there, it's not like just electing them. It's like, all right, case closed. We could uncorrupt the system. They're going to have just a unprecedented opposition to them, even if we got a progressive or anti-war president in there, through the lobbyists, through the special interests, through both Democrats and Republicans. I'd be surprised, frankly, if they would be safe security-wise. It's going to take us outside of electoral politics, in my opinion, because the country there was always corruption in the country, but we didn't literally have a purchased government until about 40, 50 years ago. And I don't know the answer to unpurchase it or uncorrupt it, but it's going to take a lot more than, electoral politics. So.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. I was born in 81, so I was right at the beginning of when this purchasing of politicians was starting.
Yeah. And by the way, in my opinion, we got to just get rid of the Supreme Court because that's a big part of the problem. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you have a bunch of unelected people in fucking robes with lifetime appointments that basically could make electoral politics moot, basically null and void it because they could just do away with any laws, then how do you even call that a democracy? I mean, let's say for argument's sake here, let's say we organize, we fight to the death so we get universal health care in this country. Who's to say the Supreme Court wouldn't stop it, wouldn't call it unconstitutional? Even if it wasn't a 6-3 Republican court, what makes you think a 5-4 more liberal court filled with corporatist judges or corporate-friendly judges couldn't find the technicalities say it's unconstitutional to have a universal government healthcare system? So there's a lot of layers to this corruption between Congress, the White House, the president, campaign finance, Supreme Court. So yeah, we got a lot of work to do. That's why I love seeing the protests. I love seeing people in the streets at these pro-Palestine protests, the George Floyd protests. But part of me feels bittersweet because what are they doing other than just going out and marching on the same blocks? I would be ecstatic if the thousands and thousands of people protesting in New York City and DC would organize economically together to be protesting with their bodies, but also be protesting with their wallets, because that's how shit will actually get done. They'll let you protest in the streets. If you get a little too rowdy, they'll just send the cops to fuck you up. But if they actually start organizing economic strikes against big banking, big box, Amazon, Walmart, and with those protests, you actually have a big mutual aid pot so that we're distributing that to affected workers because we don't want to punish the workers. Then you might see politicians start paying attention to your demands because their donors, the corporations who are being hurt by the economic protests, they're going to tell the politicians who work for them, politicians work for the donors, you gotta give these people what they want. Not all of it, but some of it. So that's my personal opinion. And by the way, that's what has happened in France, many, many times because they have universal health care and they have benefits and strong labor unions. So they protest if you do anything that pisses off the populace. And they have won a lot of concessions from the government because of their aggressive protests. So anyway, I got to go to the next person. Thanks for calling.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. I think this is Sandra.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hello. Hi. This is Joey here?
Oh.
Are you taking me here, Jordan?
I could hear you.
Oh, listen. Bless you, brother. I've been listening here. I'm calling from Wisconsin. I'm a retired acupuncture physician and a Army veteran.
That is so interesting because I just started trying.
I really appreciate it so much, man. I really love your show.
I just started trying acupuncture for my constipation because TMI.
Oh,
but
great!
I'm constipated. Anyway,
well,
go ahead.
I got a few things I want to talk to you about, and I appreciate what you're doing so much, your show and your journalism, because of all the stuff that's going on here. And I'm going to vote. I'm going to get you to that. You said it was 93%. We're going to get you to 97% or something, because I'm saying big thumbs up, yes, for this call-in stuff.
Okay. Awesome.
I think in the middle of the day is perfect for me. But whatever is, I mean, if it's good for you, that has to start with you, because it's your show. And so I'm all for that. I think this is really healthy. I appreciate it. So with that said, I want to dive into this issue with the acupuncture profession and the unionizing.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
So here's the thing. And I mean, there's so much going on, and I've paid close attention to these just previous couple of conversations, and I'll circle back to that. But I want to give you a couple snippets here. What we need is someone like an Aaron Brockovich or someone like you someone who would cover this. This is what I love about what you're doing, and I've watched what you're doing with the unions and the coverage on that. And all I can say is I thank you. I thank you because it is missing, and it gives us hope. So I'm going to start with, I've got a little, I don't know what you'd call it, but I wrote something up that covers this issue, and I'll just take a couple pieces of it here. And this, first of all, my specialty is pain management, and so it ties in with the AMA, with the FDA, and with the pharmaceutical, scam, atrocity that's been committed with the junk science to get people addicted to pharmaceutical morphine, and they've rebranded, propped up the junk science, called it something else, opioid. It's morphine, it's heroin, it's all from the same thing. It's never been safe, and it's only to be used in very limited situations with acute, extreme, intense pain, like in surgical procedures and so on. So here's what I'm going to just share with you. Here's what the other issue that's affected us, our profession, is the FDA not enforcing the law. And here's what the AMA said about this almost 8 years ago now. According to the AMA, this is what the thing I wrote up for LinkedIn. Dry needling is indistinguishable from acupuncture. Now, that's what they said almost 8 years ago, and that's the AMA. And what I wrote up on that the AMA is right. They vividly depicted a dry critique of this fake technique. Pure and simple, the hopeless drive to rebrand authentic medical acupuncture as fraud. So you've got this fraud issue. I live in a small town in western Wisconsin, right up on Main Street here. There's a chiropractor that's advertising that he's offering dry needling. It's unlicensed acupuncture.
Mm-hmm.
is what it is. And, you know, I did a lot of work on this with a nonprofit, and we had a law firm, and it costs a fortune. When it goes to the point that you're talking about corruption and the government and the influence of the corporations, and what I would like to say is this is really a kakistocracy, I think is the best description. Yes, it's plutocracy. Yes, it's oligarchy, all of that. But it's really a system of people occupied, you know, these people in these positions of influence are the worst possible people, the least principled individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and I want to say, you know, war and hatred and violence is not the answer. You know, I don't care what Bible you want to go to, the Old Testament or the New Testament or the Quran, you know. So it's the golden rule, and what Dr. King, you know, introduced to us in the civil rights movement was, you know, the law of love and loving our neighbor. That's whether we want to accept that or not. There is no other way. And so I understand how much pain and anguish there is here, but, you know, the answer is not with the circular firing squad.
I agree.
You know, which you know, some of the old timers might be advocating here. Yeah, I understand, but you learned when you were a little kid. Talk to some old timer who's got their head up their ass, and ask them what your grandpa said, or your grandma and grandpa, or your great grandpas. They said 2 wrongs don't make a right. So an eye for an eye, and a stone, you know, a tooth for a tooth is wrong.
Right.
And thou shalt not kill. It's just it's a straightforward law, you know, and so there's no loopholes in it. So at any rate, this issue with the corruption, and Dylan Radigan is a guy I'm sure you're familiar with who wrote Greedy Bastards,
yep.
And he flipped out on his show on MSNBC, and he was talking to this issue. And Inside Job is this documentary film. Is a masterpiece, and that's what I hear you saying. And when I see the flag of the United Corporations of America, I say amen to this, brother.
And that's why I'm so pissed off, because I wish
things here, and then I'll let you.
I wish I would have thought about the United Corporations flag first, because we might not even need to ask viewers to fund us if we would have been able to patent this. They would have sold like hotcakes. But
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's patented. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, another company got it before us. But what are you going to do?
Well, you're going to get there, you know, because it's the golden rule. And I swear to God, you call me a cockeyed optimist if you want to, but the best is yet to come. What needs to happen is for people to be organized. And what I love about Ralph Nader, you know, he's got a program. He interviews a guy who wrote a book, and I think maybe the title of the book is "We Are Not Divided," you know. And what I love about what you're saying is because you got that journalist background, and you're talking about the problem, and the problem is the media. And I can't. It's hard for us. I just got introduced to YouTube. I'm an old timer, and I didn't have this access. I didn't understand how to even use this stuff before. And I, as a veteran, I was in there during the Iranian hostage crisis, and when we bombed Libya, and all this insanity, you know, and that's a little experience I had, but we had no idea, and I had no idea until very recently, the complexity of this history.
Right.
I had no clue. And I'm going to tell you, is when you're in the service, they're not there to help educate you and make you learn history and stuff.
No, they are not.
And so it's so essential if people are just given the truthful information, you know, anyway. So I'm going to come back to this issue with our profession. Now, when the AMA back in 2016, here's I'm quoting them, lax regulation and non-existent standards surround this invasive practice. And for patient safety, practitioners should meet standards required for acupuncturists and physicians. Mm-hmm. Now, so what has happened is that we don't have an organization that's strong as the physical therapists, who are the major culprits here, and they have gotten into hot water in New Jersey, and I think the Attorney General said you can't do that because they're not licensed. Now, so here's the thing: if you're a patient with chronic pain, which is costing a huge cost center in the national healthcare system, and there's the physician is unable to provide a remedy. So they say, okay, you go to that physical therapist, and they could potentially give you a permanent disability because they don't. It's a surgical invasive procedure, and they're not trained to do it. They got trained by these so-called training by workshops, weekend workshops, and then the chiropractors are less of a problem, but they want to dabble in this stuff too. And just by doing this fraud thing, instead of saying that it's acupuncture and they're not allowed by the FDA guidelines to even own the acupuncture needles, let alone distribute or perform an invasive procedure or pierce the patient's tissue with a needle, that's illegal. It's against federal law. But the system is so corrupt.
Yep.
It goes back to this issue that you're hitting on over and over. It's the same kind of thing. You just beat people down. But what I want to say is that to be able to vote and organize and express ourselves, we don't want to emulate a nation like China or Russia or someplace with less rights.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying. We want to try to win back those rights that we're losing and clean up the mess here that's going to be the young people. Your kids, my grandkids, and our great-grandchildren, we need to be thinking about what's in their interest. And I think you guys, you're my kids' age, you have, you're just much more aware and much more responsible and secure in your convictions than some of us in my older generation here. But there's a lot of us in our generation that are also wanting to do the right thing. And I think we need to find where we have things in common, where the older people can mentor some of the younger people and help.
Yeah.
I think everybody wants to do the right thing. That's what I mean by I like Nader's messaging, because he's saying this is doable. People have to be organized. Like Dr. King said. I think it's something I hate taking a risk trying to quote Dr. King, but the arc of history, the arc of justice and history is. Well, see, now I'm getting kind of riled up here.
The arc of history bends towards justice, I believe.
There you go. Thank you, brother. I knew it, but we get so riled up and emotional about things, and I think that's a disservice to ourselves and others.
Absolutely.
And so, Dr. King, I really, my mom was so dramatically influenced by him, and so involved in what they called the women's liberation movement back then, which I like a lot better than the new feminism branding. I like the term liberation, and there was a lot that we can learn from that recent history. After all, it's pretty recent history, the civil rights movement, and a lot of this, and Nader is really a part of that. He's at that older end of the, I don't think he's even a baby boomer. I mean, he's almost 90.
Right.
And he's got a good track record. So it's a matter of, he says, it's always been a small minority of people that have moved the ball forward, and the arc of history bends toward justice. That, I believe, is true. Now, not everybody has to believe that, but who cares if they believe it or not?
Right.
But hatred and violence and, there's no end to that cycle.
Right. I gotta
Hey,
run.
what is-
I gotta.
That's what I had.
I gotta run. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks, Sheridan.
No problem. And I'm going to wrap it there for the calls, as I got to go help with the baby. But I think we're going to baby every Monday. And we might try to expand it to, 1.5, 2 hour show. If I could do it, I got to talk to my wife and make sure childcare wise, I could get to 2 hours. But I'm enjoying taking these calls. So we will try to do this every Monday to start the week. Don't go anywhere. I got a couple announcements. Thank you for the $5. Sega, appreciate your reporting. Appreciate your support. Thank you, Notary, $9.99. Love to hear of the teaming up with the Valley Labor Report. Go Status Coup. Yep, they did a great job. Definitely check out that report from Jake with the Valley Labor Report. It's up under the videos section. He interviewed Mercedes workers for us down in Alabama that are trying to unionize. Thank you, Ed. I'm a Status Coup member for 11 months. Thank you, Penny, $2. How do electric vehicles and war fix climate, economy, and immigration? They do not. Electric vehicles do not fix that. As a reminder, we are sending Lewis back to East Palestine for the 1-year anniversary of Norfolk Southern's chemical detonation in East Palestine. The residents are still suffering, so he'll be there on Wednesday for several days. So please, if you're not yet a Status Coup member, consider signing up. I hate to be a broken record, and some people don't like it, but I don't have a choice, because if we don't advocate for ourselves, we don't have money to do this. So please, if you value the on-the-ground reporting, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. You could join us for as low as $5 a month. You might think, what is why? How's that going to help? The more people that sign up at $5 a month, we also have $10 options, $20 options, or annual options. The more stable money we have coming in to do the on-the-ground reporting, to pay other reporters, to pay other camera people, producers, pay for travel, all that stuff. So please sign up if you can, statuscoup.com/join. You could also support the specific trip with a donation. That's statuscoup.com/trip funding. statuscoup.com/trip funding. You could donate any amount there. And that page right now has the information for East Palestine, that reporting trip that we're about to take up. And also tomorrow we will be premiering Ron Pacone's short film. So be on the lookout for that. Tomorrow we will be premiering. Ron Pacone is doing a short film for us. So that's exciting. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night.